What is up?
Yeah.
How are you doing, dude?
Good. Here, Buenos Aires, beautiful Friday night.
Sunset in an hour.
Yeah.
In the pool.
Sunset in 20 minutes.
I know, literally. We have a special guest.
Me Tens. Basically what we wanted to talk about is entrepreneurship in your 20s. Obviously there's a lot of hype around it on social media, YouTube, Instagram, and things like that. So we're kind of trying to have like a pretty honest conversation about what our experience has been so far. I've been in it for probably 2 years. Danny's got a good year in it at this point.
Sick, yeah. Speaking about personal brand and entrepreneurship, I think those two go in, hand in hand. Talking about AI, exciting stuff like that. Patrick, why don't you start with an introduction?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Patrick Keenan. I'm 24. From Philadelphia, outside of the city, small town called Kennett Square, and then ended up going to university in Madrid. And then, basically been spending the past 2 years traveling around once I graduated, doing work. What I had learned about traveling and stuff while I was in Madrid and the ability to move around, meet new people, go to different places, different cultures, was that it's something that I wanted to be able to continue. So I originally started applying to jobs that were remote. I applied to jobs in the US. I applied to jobs in Spain.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I got like maybe 3 replies, and it was like 3 no's, and maybe 1 interview out of it.
Yeah, same. My process was brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was super hard. So basically was in a position where I knew I wanted to continue that lifestyle to move around and travel, and no one was going to give me a job to do it. So I ended up getting into freelancing, SEO.
Okay.
And that's kind of like started this whole thing.
Sick, dude. Well, thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Daniel. I'm 24 years old. I went to University of Arkansas, graduated, and then spent 8 months driving Uber and applying to jobs, and it was the most miserable time of my life. And then, I did an exchange program here in Buenos Aires in high school, loved it, was like, I need to find a way to get back. And then I was able to, found a job here, landed here, doing paid ads at a digital marketing agency based out of London. So did that for a year and a half, and then met Patrick, and we got along super well. Really bought into his vision for, the company that he wanted to start, which is called Chuma, where we worked on LinkedIn marketing services for
courses,
then
LinkedIn,
then copywriting, kind of just, did a lot of different pivots, trying to figure out what worked, and, found a lot of stuff that didn't work, right? Like, I think this whole thing of entrepreneurship sounds so sick, man. Like, that's such a great thing to get into. But then, the reality of what, being an entrepreneur, especially when you're young and maybe don't have that much actual experience, I think the reality is often a lot harder than what you see propagated on social media. And so now kind of moving on and doing more of freelance stuff, now focused around copywriting, content writing, brand strategy, personal brand strategy. And then we're going to talk about that in the podcast. So excited to get into it. Really glad you're here. Super excited to chat. And hope you enjoy.
I think a good place to start would be kind of what got us interested in this. Because obviously when I spoke to you, you bought into the energy, you bought into the vision, but you had obviously had some ideas before that about what entrepreneurship would look like, whether it was from what we saw on YouTube or Instagram. So I think, maybe you could share a little bit about some of your first endeavors and what got you originally interested in that.
I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur, and when I was young, I was doing resell, so reselling Supreme, reselling luxury clothing, always I feel like you have that entrepreneurial bone in your body, and I don't know if you had any the lemonade stand, the car wash.
I had none of it.
Really?
None.
It's crazy. You went from literally from international relations to be like, cool, I'm gonna start an SEO freelance agency.
No, I had none
it's
of
nuts.
It. Yeah.
And so I'd always had that bone, and I was like, dude, I would love to do something myself. Did a retail arbitrage business a little bit before, during COVID, where I sold inflatable pools, if you can imagine.
That's awesome.
And made a load of money doing that. And then, I was always I think just societally and as I grew up, it was go to the traditional path, right? Of go to college, learn, whatever it is. For me, it was marketing and international business, and then, move on to, a corporate career. And, that's what I did. And so I did that for a year, and really just felt like I wasn't fulfilled. Ow, that hurt. Doing the, ouch, doing the grunt work, which is, fair. That's what you do when you first start. But I think I was looking for something more fulfilling, and what Patrick really propagated and really sold me on was this concept of life design, and he already had that kind of the ability to live where you want, be able to work with who you want, and be able to kind of carve your own path in the world. And I'd done some traveling before and did Madrid, and we were actually there in Madrid at the same time. Just didn't know each other, which is kind of crazy. But both were, I was like, hey, I'd love to continue living abroad. Was able to do that in Buenos Aires, but then at the end of the day, I was like, I'm I'm not fulfilled with corporate career. How do I, maybe pivot into something that I'm able to have more ownership over and be able to contribute to something? And even though I'm not the CEO, I get to be able to like be at that leadership level and be able to support you in the vision and direction that you had for Chuma. And us, having the same social media feed and always being on, reading all the same books with Hormozy and, all these Daniel Dale and Chad Cohen, all these guys that we follow, and being like, wow, like we're really aligned on that regard, and, both kind of look for the same thing. So I'd love to ask you, life design specifically, like what about that is, so appealing to you, and, how does that inform the way you live your life?
There's three big aspects. There's the time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. I think there's like a basic level of, freedom that I wanted. Obviously, I tried to apply to the job, so it's not like that was my first, idea. Like I wanted a job.
Sure.
Just didn't really work out that I ended up getting one. So I was like, okay, what can I do that people will pay for?
Yeah.
Well, they pay for blogs, and then the SEO came in because it just adds like metrics and stuff like that to it. So my thought was that if I could learn a skill that people would pay for in a way that I could control it, right? Whether I was running ads to it, cold calling, or setting up on like a freelancer profile, that would allow me to work, how I wanted and from wherever I wanted.
Sure.
And that's pretty much all I needed. Like I've never been a guy who needs, a lot of money or like fancy stuff. I just really wanted something where I could kind of control where I was. That was my biggest goal, was to not have to move home. Time freedom, I still had to work a lot, so that was one thing, but financial freedom, that definitely wasn't like passive income or a bunch of money, but location freedom was the big one for me. That's really what I wanted. And so I was able to get that, and that was, the main goal.
I mean, I think with AI and like where we're moving to, and like the, entry level roles not being maybe as relevant, or, the need for AI fluency to be able to even be competitive. And we saw it when we were first like applying to jobs, like it was so fucking hard to get a job.
Yeah.
And I think, a part of that was AI, but a part of that's just like the market, right? I think you said it well too, of like this desire for freedom. And then in those three aspects that you mentioned of like wanting ultimate control over your destiny and ultimate control over your life. Like I was in corporate, and it was like, there's nothing wrong with corporate. I'm not like hating against corporate. Like I think I learned a ton. I'm, even would potentially go back. When you're just starting out in corporate, it's like, you have to do all the grunt work, and you feel like you have all this potential. Like you're young, you're hungry, you're excited, and it just feels like every single day is the same day, and it feels like kind of defeating, especially as a high performer. And I think you too. I think there's just so much more out there for me. You hear this all the time, like 20s are for taking risks. 20s are for going after what you truly want to go. If that's a startup, you want to go, start a coffee shop, whatever it is. And it doesn't even need to be entrepreneurship, but finding fulfillment and then making money while doing it. I think those are two things that often like, butt heads. But, for me, that was, what interested me when I was working with, like, to work with you, quite frankly. And we didn't even know, like, barely even knew each other. Like we got connected through a buddy who he went to college with, he was close to. We went and talked. He was gonna go get a tattoo. I was like, yo bro, can I come hang out and like just chat? And so we did, and like literally like one conversation was like, this is the type of energy and type of person that I've been looking for. And I think we'll speak about it more too, just like community and the people you're around, the friends you're around, the people that you surround yourself with, especially in your 20s and even other ages too. But like that is almost one of the most important, on top of where you're at, people you surround yourself with and the things they do and the habits they have, and the desires and passions they have for their life is so critical. And ultimately you want to align that with what you did. And I feel like Patrick and me were aligned on so many of those levels, especially with entrepreneurship and personal branding, and be able to tell our voice and all these things that I think made it really easy for me to make that decision, and be able to quit my corporate job, leave that, and really take the risk and bet on myself and bet on what we were building together.
I think you mentioned personal branding in there a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously one of the things that you were super interested in was the personal branding aspect from the start. We did like a bunch of things to kind of keep the business going, keep things moving. But like a goal that we always had was personal branding. And I know that we spent a bunch of time, on my LinkedIn and on my personal brand on that end, which was, super helpful to become known for something, to get a following. I had like 150 LinkedIn connections or something when we started.
Yeah.
And now it's like 1,500. So I think it's almost 2,000 at this point. Almost 2,000 with people, you're interacting with, talking to. We got some great comments and everything. I'd love to get a little bit of like your take on personal branding, because you pretty much drove the whole thing. So I think like after doing 6 months of running a personal brand, kind of like what you learned and then what you're going to take into the future with you from those learnings.
I think personal brand is everything. I know it's like this really big buzzword in marketing right now, and especially with, founder-led brands and, build in public meta that we're seeing on social media. media, at the moment. For me, personal branding is telling the world and showcasing who you are to people that have similar values and can relate to the things that you're talking about. And one, for like inspiration, like we were talking about, like you want to speak to people who are 2 years behind you, that you've gone through what they've gone through, and so they're able to relate to the challenges and the wins that you've had, and you kind of have like kind of the mentor voice, more so than like needing to be an influencer, needing to be somebody special, or like needing to influence people. Like, these are the things I'm going through, and then they can be able to learn from that. And with like just the commoditization of knowledge, and with all this content that floods the internet constantly, it's like you need to have a voice. You need to be bold. You need to tell your story, whatever that story may be. Doesn't even need to be entrepreneurship related, but like you're telling who you are through social media, which social media is a massive distribution component. With you specifically, all the time I spent was building your personal brand on LinkedIn, and showcasing different aspects of who you were, like personal, but as well as like the tactical stuff that you were learning as a CEO, and the tactical stuff that you were learning as a CEO, personal stuff that but like lessons you were learning as a founder, as a new founder, as a founder who was hiring a new team for the first time. And like it really helped me become a better writer. It helped me become a better communicator. And I think that as I move into this next chapter with my own personal brand, of like having grown your personal brand, having done some stuff minimally with Instagram, but have done build in public with YouTube. And I think to continue telling my story and to continue telling the things that are important to me on social media, and really have that visibility, whether it's for career opportunities, whether it's for just like for you, a lot of it was just like documentation. I feel like.
I think also like competitive advantages. I don't think we're not the first people to talk about personal branding, and it's been pretty big for a while now. I think one of the interesting things that we've discussed in people who we've met, basically take advantage of their situations, take advantage of their very defining aspects. So for example, like you in Argentina, right? Like you have a pretty interesting foothold there, which I think you could talk a little bit about, which would be very interesting, and how you're planning to use that, if you are to your advantage when building your personal brand.
Sure, I think it's a great question. Thanks for calling that out. I think there is a meta where in a market, and even like with businesses, it's like it can be saturated or it can be unsaturated, right? And I think with personal brand specifically, and people who are very visible, and even let's say influencers, right? There are cities that are very, very, predominant influencer and predominant like people who are posting on social media and like leveraging the environment, the people, the network, everything that's the cultural aspect, the food, the architecture, everything which surrounds like not like just what their brand is. And so there's this like really cool strategy that I think I want to be able to employ, which is like, I'm in Buenos Aires right now, I speak fluent Spanish, and I like
come on, explain.
What?
It's not just like fluent Spanish, it's like perfect, matches the dialect, the accent is literally spot on, has all the slang, all the normal words people here use. Every time we go out to a restaurant or bar, everyone turns their head and they're like, who's that?
Come on,
so
bro.
It's not just fluent Spanish, it's like freakishly perfect and adapted to Argentina.
And I think the idea here, like if you've seen Daniel Dalen, and I'm sure you guys have if you've watched him, but he does it expertly. Like he plays this to a T. It's like he has built his business and by anchoring himself to Hong Kong, and obviously it helps massively that he speaks Mandarin.
I think his competitive advantage was that he went and did that as a young person. He learned how to speak Chinese, he learned how to speak Mandarin,
right?
And that's what's allowed him to see his opportunity. He's like, oh wow, there's a huge shift in the global supply chain to the point where I can take advantage of that.
Sure.
But there's tons of people who do supply chain. There's tons of people who have more money than me that do supply chain. What's the differentiator for me? Oh, I speak perfect Mandarin. Right? And that's kind of like a thing for you where it's like you've learned how to run a personal brand, you've learned all the theory and everything behind it. And so now with that, you're just like waiting to find the perfect opportunity, which is now being like, oh wow, can I now use all those skills and all those things that I've learned to fit into my opportunity, which is, oh, I speak this perfectly, and is there something to really take advantage of here? And you've had proof of it before and it working really well with like Brennan's video and stuff, like,
Yeah, no, I did I did a Instagram video where I did like over 1 million views, and it was like me meeting this random guy.
And you got what, 2,000 followers or something from it, like
stupid.
A day?
Yeah, met this guy on the street randomly. It was like, I think I recognized this guy from like Reels feed. and we started chatting, and I was like, yeah, and his whole thing is like, he's an American influencer who's been doing content for literally ever, comes to Buenos Aires, moves to Cordoba, has this like it's a city in Argentina, has this Cordobesan accent, just built a massive following off the back of that about, speaking about content about Argentina, about how much he loves Argentina, about the culture, about differences in the culture between US and Argentina. And there's a lot of creators actually, Patrick, that are doing that now, that are like Americans coming here and like talking about that stuff. But like, if I were to do, the idea is to like leverage like what we were talking about. And
he speaks Spanish. You have a perfect accent. Like, even if you're like, oh, what are some people who are like really, going in on something, like that's definitely something that you could do, and you're waiting for like, what's that, differentiator? Because we had like my account and stuff and we're running it. And the truth is that I don't really think that in that space I had a huge differentiator,
Sure.
Like I had obviously, younger, a passion for it, really interested, driven, like really trying hard.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, everyone's trying hard. Maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of people that are trying hard.
Agreed.
There's a lot of people that can post every day. There's a lot of people that can make great videos.
Great content.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that was reflected in our stuff because we never had like crazy engagement. Like your first video, which wasn't even on your platform, is like, that's crazy engagement, And so it's kind of highlighting even more that with personal brands, it's very hard to do it. But if you do have a differentiating factor, something that gives you that competitive advantage, it's going to make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, agreed. And that's like, I think it's up to you to like find that, like, what is that for yourself? And, it was interesting too with Chuma. It's like we were selling to, CEOs and founders and coaches and consultants, like this, like people with 60 years of experience and like, it's way easier to speak to a Gen Z audience and people who are around our age to be able to relate to the things we're talking about. Like the point is that you have authority with that, but like whenever you're trying to like speak up to these people, which I mean, obviously like you're confidently speaking, you're putting out really high quality content and like valuable based content, but like there is a gap where they're like, oh, this is just a young dude. As you move into your next, chapter, and I think you're still gonna do personal brand and still gonna, post content eventually. I think, being visible, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or whatever it may be, but find that for yourself. And I think that's a really big takeaway for the audience too, is like, you can do that too. You can find that differentiating factor, whether it's a location differentiating factor, language differentiating factor, and be able to apply that to the business that you're running. And really like set yourself apart. And I think it really takes a lot of creativity and deep thought to be like, okay, what is that and what makes me different? And maybe it's some like aspect of your story, and use a specific format on social media, like that you own and that's very you. And then you see one video pop off on that format and you just keep repeating that format. So yeah, I think those were my thoughts on personal brand. And I think everybody should do a personal brand and pump social media, and you don't need to be an influencer. You don't need to be anything special. Like I think that, honesty, humility, authenticity is really like what's going to win in, this year and in the future. Patrick, I'd love to get your take on the whole build in public thing and these like young influencers and people our age like blowing up.
Yeah.
Why they blowing up, and do you like it? Do you not? What are some influencers that you admire? Speak to me about that.
It's shifting a lot. I think it's changing. I think, one of the first people who got me super into business was Daniel Dalen. I liked him a lot. I think he was super cool. I started his vlog series, and like as they were coming out, saw all of them. I really like that. A few other people I like, Chad Cohen, Blake Roca. Yeah. I really like those guys. I don't really, like, honestly, at this point, I don't really know. I think that there's something that has to do with a level of like just consistency to it. Like I think consistency is really the driving factor.
Sure.
Like these guys have been putting out content even related to different businesses or related to different things for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I do think they caught the build in public wave.
Right.
Like I do think that right now we're past the build the public thing.
We are, yeah.
I don't think it's hot anymore. I do think they all kind of caught that wave and already had 10, 20, 30 videos uploaded by the time that came, so they were in prime position. But yeah, I think it's really good. I think what they kind of show is really good. I think overall, they're good people. They're not really like the Lambo position people. I think we see through that now. That kind of thing doesn't really work the way it did. I think it worked really well for a while. I don't really think the Miami.
Well, I think it works. But like, what audience are you attracting?
Yeah, who does it work for? True.
And you get all these millions of followers.
Miami,
what kind of
guys.
what kind of followers are you getting?
Yeah.
People who value, fake Lambo, you know, like it's not real, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree definitely. And I think, you know, there's probably something new that's coming, which is, you know, a mix of building your personal brand, but I don't really think it's for like standing out anymore. I think it's kind of like hedging your bets against like irrelevancy. Like I think you're kind of like, oh, there's a lot of people who are going to be kind of washed away by, you know,
AI.
Yeah, but also like just general automation, just general things moving forward. And you're going to kind of have to stand out a little bit to be someone that people look to.
I think it's like, to your point, it's table stakes. It's
Yeah.
literally the minimum requirement
Yeah.
is you need to have some sort of visible presence on socials.
Yeah.
And some sort of like, this is what I talk about,
Yeah.
this is what I do, and not be so behind the scenes. You need to be present.
Yeah.
You need to be, you know, visible to your network, to, you know, your company, to, you know, people around you. And I think there's just so much opportunity is there.
Yeah.
Even like people are like, oh, personal branding is so saturated. Like, oh, people say that about everything. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, marketing is so saturated. It's like, come on.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we also want to talk about was what we take away from these guys and how realistic it is. So I think, you know, after I've been in entrepreneurship for a little while now, Danny, you've been in it for about like a year. What do you think about, you know, the dream and the lifestyle they sell now that you've been really doing it? Do you think it's realistic? Do you think it's achievable but just really hard? Do you think it's not achievable? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, dude, it's brutal. Like, oh, entrepreneurship's so sick, man. Like, well, oh, it's so cool you're an entrepreneur, bro. Like, so cool. I never see that on socials. I always see like this like beautiful, like, I'm in a villa in Bali. They're like, you know, evidently have some money, like they got going to them. But it's like, I think it's like you only see the people on social media that are successful. You're not seeing the, you know, millions of other guys who are like trying to build in public or trying to build their personal brand or trying to, you know, working day and night to get it. Only the sharks or like the guys at the top who you actually see, who the algorithm pushes, are the ones you're seeing. And they're not successes overnight. Like they've been doing this for you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Like that's what success takes. Success takes years, man. And anybody can do this, 100%. It's hard, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And you should do it. If this is something that like sparks your interest and excites you, and you know, you want to, you know, build your company and like find fulfillment doing it, and you know, find your, you know, be able to speak to a specific audience that you know so well because you've, you know, had all this life experience that you're able to like speak to this audience and sell them a specific product or sell them a service. Like, you should do it and you should go for it. And like there's no in life, there's no like I need to like sit back and relax. It's like you need to go for it. And hey, you know, it's hard. And you know, we, you know, been working together for, you know, 9 months now, and you know, we're kind of going our separate ways. And the reality is that what we were working on with the LinkedIn personal branding, like, just, you know, didn't work to exactly what, you know, we expected it to work. And it's like, for me, it's like there's a level of like, oh, I failed, you know, and I was gonna, you know, continue going and going and going, but like at the same time, it's like, hey, that's not easy. And I think that all you can do is take lessons from, you know, from these things, and you know, continue to move forward. And if you never give up and you continue going, you're gonna have success and you're gonna win.
I think with that being said, you know, we can go over, you know, a small thing of like what Chuma was, what we're doing to pivot. You know, obviously we mentioned that we started with the courses with it, then we got into the LinkedIn personal branding, ended up building, you know, a 3-person team, really going at it together, pretty much every single aspect of it. And, you know, we've been doing that for the past 6 months. This is like one of those first big lessons that we're going through where, you know, maybe the numbers that we thought were going to happen didn't happen. We couldn't really sell to the price point that we wanted it to. Even if we did, the sustainability of it might not have worked, but also just like, you know, the sheer aspect of trying to run, you know, 2 or 3 things was also kind of tearing us apart a little bit. So I think, you know, we could go over like some of like the real lessons that we learned from this.
Sure.
And then how we're going to move into our next ventures, you know, more realistic and more prepared. I think one of the biggest things I learned is you really do need to have like a very prioritized focus. And that's something that everyone preaches, and it's definitely true. Like, focus on one thing, and really just, if you have something that's working, then just go with that, move with that. No matter how much you want to do something, even if it's like a sexy business or not a sexy business.
The girl in a red dress syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you have something that's working, just like take that and enjoy it, and then, you know, build it into what you want. But, you know, it's not always going to be what you thought it is. Like, the thing that makes you successful, the thing that takes you where you want to go, isn't always going to be, you know, what you necessarily hoped or wanted. So I think keeping an eye out for that is super important. Also, just doing like basic, you know, research and understanding, your target market before actually like going all in a business.
Yeah.
Like have a business plan, understand the numbers, understand what people are currently charging for it, you know, just like basic business analysis.
Future of the market.
Exactly, yeah. Definitely looking at that, because one thing that we learned is like, we were like, oh, of course everyone's going to want branding.
Right.
And then you start talking to people, and there's, you know, some people who do want to invest in it, but there's also like not that many people who want to invest in it as well. So understanding where that stands. But yeah, I think those are, you know, some of the big takeaways. Obviously, there's more detailed things, you know, how to run a team. Are you ready to run a team? Working together as a team, right? I think that's
structure,
a lot of it.
systems, ownership.
Exactly. Yeah, those are kind of the big takeaways for me right now.
How do you see the, like, what you learned and what you just spoke about being implemented in the future of, you know, this, you're still doing SEO freelance, maybe speak about that, or even just like new ventures that you want to eventually do, because obviously as an entrepreneur, it's like you're going to have multiple things that you work on, you know, multiple businesses.
I'll be honest, I think that part of what I was talking about earlier about like not having that bone in my body, like I never considered myself to be an entrepreneur. I never considered it, thought of it, even when you're hearing all the words in class and, you know, you're learning about them. I was never like, oh, I'm going to be that guy. Like I never ever thought that way at all. And I'm starting to think that like entrepreneurship's just like a metaphor for life in a way, where it's like you just learn lessons and you acquire more skills, and then you fail, and then you learn, and you fail, and then you learn. And I don't at this point have like, you know, another venture in mind or another thing. I think that this period for me has been like a period of really hard work, really long days, really long nights, and just like intense learning. And then I made a video on LinkedIn talking about like working like a lion, where you work super hard and then you reset and repeat.
Right. And
I'm starting to think that that's not like a 2-month thing, and that might be like a 2-year thing. Like it might be like, okay, you just like grind and work super hard for like a year or 2 years, and then you're like, okay, what have I done? And maybe your downtime after the hunt is like 9 months. You know, like maybe it's not a super fast turnaround. Maybe it's looking at what you did, everything you've learned, and then really thinking, really learning, okay, is digital marketing my future? Is digital marketing the future? Do I understand basics of business? Do I understand basic, you know, payment methods, models? Like, you know, do I really have any idea what's going on? And what did I learn? And then your takeaway is like, do I even like business? Like, I don't know if I like business. Like I know that when I started this and when I started SEO, it wasn't because it was like, oh, I want to get super rich and I want to be a businessman.
Sure.
It was like, I want to be able to be where I want.
Sure.
Like a pretty basic, selfish kind of thing, which I just want to be able to control where I am. And that's what got me there. And then that kind of got slightly changed into like, oh, well, I can just do a bigger business now that I have business. And you try to make a bigger business and the business wasn't getting any bigger. And in the moment, I was enjoying it a lot. Like I was having fun. You know, I think being in a team made that a lot better, because we definitely fed off each other in that energy. But now that I'm sitting here, and it could also be like, you know, flip-floppy of a person kind of thing, but I don't think so. We were pretty dedicated to that for a long time.
Oh, we were. We're insanely dedicated.
Yeah, exactly. And now for me, it's like, it's crazy to think that I'm sitting in this chair legitimately like, I have no genuine interest for business. Like there's nothing about selling that really gets me excited. I don't have an idea for a product that really helps people. Like if I made something right now, I'd be innovating for the sake of innovation, which is like, okay, you know, I don't know a need that can be fixed, and I don't like hunt for it. I don't search for needs.
And do you feel like that's good or bad? Or is it either?
It just is, yeah. It just is. I think the way that you handle it.
Surprising to you that that's definitely the realization that you've come to?
Yeah, 100%.
After being so involved in,
yeah,
you know, and just so dedicated and obsessed and focused on this one, you know, build this business and be successful and make money and, you know, have this freedom that I've always wanted. Like, you've reached this pinnacle of like, okay, why am I doing it?
I don't think a pinnacle, I think a breaking point. I think you're kind of sitting there and you're like, all right, you know, I'm working all day. It's all I think about. It's all I do. I legitimately can't hold a normal conversation at the end of the day because I'm so tired. And, you know, I'm so torn in all these different areas. And it's like, okay, none of it's, I mean, obviously SEO always worked, but it's like, okay, other things aren't working. So is this the right thing? I think really evaluating that and evaluating what's going on leads you to a very simple conclusion, which is like, okay, the two things don't meet. We're not seeing results, and I'm having a good time, but it's not like sustainable, you know? And so I think when you kind of look at that and realize that, and you're like, oh, why did I start this in the first place? Kind of reveals that question, which is like, oh, maybe, growing a business isn't the point.
Talk to me about the relationship between failure and entrepreneurship.
I mean, they're the same thing. That's the metaphor for life. Like entrepreneurship, it's a lifestyle. It's not like it's a thing. It's like you live like an entrepreneur. So everything is failure and learning. Everything is failure and learning. And even if you are in the middle of running a huge business, or if you're in the middle of running a failing business, you're still an entrepreneur.
Sure.
It's just all learning. Like obviously everyone says that, don't say failure, it's like learning. But I don't think failure is the right word, like ever in entrepreneurship. I don't think failure is ever the word. I think it's only learning, only iteration. Iteration is my favorite word. I think you can only get better, you can only keep growing, and maybe for you as an entrepreneur, that's, oh, I'm just gonna run this small business to do other things now. But either way, you're learning and you're growing, and just keeping yourself ready for, opportunity when it comes.
What would be the word then if it's not failure?
Iteration. Yeah, iterating, just like learning as you go and keep making things better, keep improving.
But I feel like there has to be a word before the iteration comes the iteration. There has to be an acceptance and a realization of what I did not work. Therefore, I will learn from that moment or experience to then choose to iterate, which is almost like step 2 of the learning from the quote unquote failure.
Yeah.
What would you say that? How do you see that?
Yeah, for the sake of the discussion, failure is the word. I just don't think it brings the right connotation to
I would agree. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I agree. I also see it the same way as you. I think there is the acceptance of the failure that's necessary to be able to move on, but that you can't see that as the end. Like I failed. Like I suck. Like because failure goes into negative, when in really it should be like, okay, what did I learn?
Yeah.
What can I do better? Because obviously there were things that weren't working.
Yeah.
To then be like, okay, how can I then iteratively improve upon what I was doing?
Right.
To go a different direction and pivot to then be able to see success, or
just iterate in life.
Or I fail again, and then I continue iterating. But guess what? I learned something from it. And I think that's what's the key takeaway.
Yeah.
Key takeaway there. The society we live in, of like this attention economy and this over optimization society where everything needs to be perfect, and we need to be the most ripped, perfect versions of ourselves all the time, and everything you see on social media is like, okay, I need to take peptides, like I need to be ripped, you need to be going to the gym 5 days a week, you need to be doing this and this to have like a healthy life, to have a good life. And like who's that to tell me that I need to have like a good life to me is different than what a good life is to you. Like to you, what is optimization? Like give me your thoughts on this like overconsumption, over-optimization society that we currently live in that's propagated by social media.
I now believe that social media, when you see people on social media, it's because they're successful on social media and they're trying to like sell you something for social media. So for example, obviously everyone who you see
is anybody ever on social media not to sell you something?
Yeah, that's the point. Like I really don't. I really don't think so. Like I really don't think so.
I don't think so either.
And that's why, because even if
I just want to share my story, I'm like,
no, they're trying to show.
Like, how do I monetize my brand when I get X followers and you brand partnerships and make fucking a load of money off social media, be a content creator? Like
Yeah, and that's the thing where I was like, I don't really know. I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty over it. Like I really don't care anymore. I think it causes some negative, like if you get too involved into it and you pay too much attention to it, especially when you're like, well, I want to be like these guys, because then you just compare yourself to them constantly, and then you have really negative things that can go on your head, like, oh, I'm not there yet, I'm not that great yet, or I'm not there. Obviously they form really good inspiration if you use it well, but if you get too entrenched in it, I think it becomes a negative. It became a pretty negative thing for me, and I realized it was detracting a lot from what I wanted to do, and my basic like daily levels of happiness and enjoyment.
Sure.
So at this point, I'm honestly pretty over it. I don't really, see the point in consuming it or really even making it right now. I think there's basic levels to kind of maintain like your professional appearance and stuff.
Sure.
But in general, I'm really not that interested in it anymore.
I think you're like at like a reset point. And I think that eventually, like I know you understand the value in it, and I think that right now is not the time, but like you will, when it's time and it's ready, there will be a time where you'll push content, I think. If that's even the thing. And then and distribution, you know, and marketing and sales is like going towards the like, you need to have a social media presence, and you need, you know, that's how we're getting, you know, attention nowadays, is through social media as like a main distribution channel. You know, does that change? I mean, I see it staying, you know.
Yeah.
I think the authentic story of who you are, like, I think you know, you're going to find a way to tell it, you know.
Yeah.
Whether that's through in-person community. Like, dude, you joined the Founded by Few. You know, talk to me about that, like that entrepreneurial group you joined, and like what's that doing for you, and like kind of you have your next couple months planned up, and you're doing a couple trips with them. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear, you know, like other people's stories and what they're doing, especially when they're kind of like at the same place as you, or like a little bit ahead of you.
Sure.
Because it kind of helps you see like the realistic vision, and, you know, what they've achieved, what you can achieve, but also just like having conversations related to that with people, because obviously we travel a lot. And it's hard to find people who are doing the same thing. So, you know, having a group of people who are all doing the same stuff, all interested in working together and helping each other, and, you know, sharing similar values, and also like problems and similar, you know, challenges, is really nice to meet and be a part of. So I'm super excited for that. It'll be really interesting too for me, because I'm not really focused on scaling anything at the moment.
Tell him he's going to Costa Rica. He's also going to Portugal too.
Yeah, so each place for a month in a villa with 6 to 8 people.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be awesome, and it'll be really strange, because now that I'm not scaling anything, like I'm going to be genuinely interested in what they're doing, problems they're solving, and, you know, it might give me ideas for, you know, the next
future businesses. Totally.
Exactly, for the next things that I would want to work in. But
that's fair.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to be able to spend that much time in beautiful places with people who are doing super cool stuff. That obviously makes, you know, a big difference in our lifestyle, because we're not in offices surrounded by people constantly. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. After the lessons you've learned from the past few months, plus, you know, expectations, like, you know, what do you think you're going to do?
Man, it's tough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's been pretty emotionally, you know, stressful, you know, the past week, you know, past 2 weeks, just kind of, you know, moving on from, you know, what we were doing together with Chuma to starting, you know, figuring out what my next path is. And I think, you know, transition seasons are natural in life, and like life is just a series of seasons. And, you know, you can take a lot of great from what we did together, and I think that, you know, I'm taking everything that I learned and starting with some freelance stuff, doing a lot of like content writing, blog writing, SEO blog writing, content writing, like visual design stuff, brand strategy stuff, founder-led brand strategy stuff. So there's like that freelance component. And then also like applying to corporate jobs. You know, I'm not against the whole corporate thing. Like, I think there's a ton of value and a ton of things you can learn from people who, you know, have been doing, like, you know, your manager and people above you, and have been doing that and they've been in that world forever. So also applying to jobs, but like at a really high performance, really, you know, just, you know, even startup-y, like just like grindy, like culture where, you know, these guys are just as bought in high performance as, you know, me and you. And I think, you know, not just going to some random ad agency where I'm just like, like, you know, doing the grunt work. Like, I think real ownership, real impact, and, you know, really knowing that, you know, I can contribute to something great, you know, whether that's the mission of the company, whether that's the product that they're selling, you know, aligned to my values. You know, could be cool to join like I run a lot, so a running company, you know, is doing, you know, just an innovative, just really like, you know, doing some cool stuff with social media, social strategy, content strategy, like looking for companies like that. So if you know anybody, I'm here. So text, ring my line. But yeah, I'm just excited. I think I'm really thankful for, you know, the time we've spent together, and time that we've, you know, grown as friends and, you know, business partners. Because I think there is just a separation there. Like, one thing is being a friend, and then there's another thing that's, you know, in a business relationship. And often they cross over, and sometimes you have some like overlap, especially, you know, when we're together all the time. But I think that there's just only positives and you know, things that I'm taking away, and, you know, just excited about the future, and, you know, potentially again building my personal brand here in Argentina, moving forward with that. You know, doing content on fashion. I love fashion, so doing that. Doing content on like content strategy too. I'd love to do some stuff on that.
Huge learning step. You know, almost a year. Let's say it's a year. Great year of learning. Great year of doing stuff, and just
kind of end of a chapter for sure. Yeah. If you were to give the audience one thing about what you're learning that you want them to take away from this whole podcast, what would that be?
I think know what your vision of success is, and then just know like what your point is to doing it, because every time,
your why.
Yeah, every time I go back to what my why was, which like, just like locational freedom.
Sure.
Like the ability to just kind of work from where I want. everything in my life gets simpler. Like, it's not huge cars, it's not huge houses, it's not all this stuff. And that, maybe that'll come with time, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, what's my main goal? I would just be able to have like basic freedom to travel around when I want and work with people that I want. I'm like, oh, I don't have to be doing all this. I already have that.
Sure.
And I think if you're young, getting started,
Tell them.
Yeah, if you're young, getting started, obviously all the really cool, big YouTube guys are great inspiration to show you what's possible and stuff. But if you're at a point where it's like, all right, step one, I'm about to go into the workforce, but I'd much rather work for myself. Just very basic freelancing platforms work great. Find something which is like,
and buy a course. It's about thousands of fucking dollars in spends.
I did
it's
spend
investment,
all my money on a course.
And these courses actually work. There's a lot of scammers, but like find a guy that you really trust and like has actual good content and buy his course. And this guy's an example of it.
Yeah.
Like, I was also like, fuck the course shit, but this guy like ripped it.
And do something that makes sense. Find something that everybody needs.
AI automation.
SEO. Everybody with a website needs SEO. Like, you can sell that to somebody. So if you're looking for, just like that's your success metric, get that, and then pat yourself on the back for achieving success, and then just enjoy it until that metric changes. But have your goal in mind, have your end goal in mind, so that you don't get lost, doing something that you're not supposed to be doing.
Awesome. And then I want to leave you with these last few words. Remember that success rewards bold action. I also, and I think you too, should think about your life and where you want it to be in 10 years. And every step that you take is it gonna reward the person that I want to be in 10 years? Think about all the aspects of your life. Like, how do you want your relationships to be? What does that mean to invest in those and bring it to a point where you want it to be in 10 years? Like, your health, that's a massive thing too. Like, life isn't just, and I feel like, there are sacrifices you make, when you're in certain seasons. And I think for us in this past year, it's been really really business focused and really just putting so many hours into like trying to make it work.
Yeah.
But like, then you sacrifice on other things that are also important to you, and like
health,
finding a hobby,
hobbies,
going out, having fun, drinking. Like, we're gonna, have a nice beer after this. Like, it's not about, I need to go sober. I need to just like lock it. I need to, it's like, you burn out and it's just not sustainable. So that's one thing. And then be okay with being honestly imperfect. Have that relentless obsession for whatever you're doing. Know that there are no rules in life, in business, and you can do whatever you choose to do. So dream on. And then, I want to be the biggest creative director for founders and influencers on business info Insta by the end of 2026. So I implore you to also, give that one statement or dream that you have that you're going to do and you have set an intention for by the end of 2026. But that's it. That's the podcast. So really appreciate you listening and watching. If you got to this point, that's fucking dope. Really appreciate you. Man. Well, I appreciate your time.
Good stuff, homie.
Really good.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Great idea.
Appreciate it. I really enjoyed speaking to you. So,
cool,
guys.
Beer.
Yeah. Take it easy, guys. Adios.